Hi guys, so as we will be talking about Lebanon and Lebanese wine in the next few tastings, first things first, I think it's important to understand exactly where the country is, where the wine is being made, and what the connection it has with wine. So Lebanon is situated in the Middle East. It's a country that's about the size of Wales, more or less. It measures about 200 odd kilometres north to south, and just about 150 kilometres from east to west. It has two main mountain ranges. You've got the Anti-Lebanon range on the east-hand side that borders Syria, and then you've got Mont Liban, or Mount Lebanon, that runs up the centre. And in between those two mountain ranges, you've got a very fertile plateau where the majority of wine is planted, called the Bekaa Valley. However, wine production is by no means limited to the Bekaa Valley, and that's what makes these wines so interesting, the wines coming up that we will be tasting, because where Lebanon loses somewhat in latitude, it's about 35-degree latitude, so quite low down, bearing in mind somewhere like Bordeaux is 44, I believe, 44 degrees. Where it loses in latitude and where it's a much warmer country, it's actually gaining a lot in altitude. In fact, Lebanon is home to the highest vineyards in the Middle East, which is quite exciting, and we'll definitely be tasting some wine from those a little later on. Now, with regards to Lebanon's relationship with wine, it's said the Phoenicians started planting vines here about 9,000 years ago. That fact alone makes Lebanon one of the oldest wine-producing regions in the whole world. They began with a product that they initially used for themselves, and then a few thousand years later they actually began exporting through the port of Byblos, just north of Beirut. Byblos, or Jebel, is also the city where the alphabet began. So the Phoenicians were a group of very, very cultured, very intelligent people who've had a huge influence on the entire world. With the product they made, they used to put it in clay amphora pots, also locally made and also still used in modern winemaking today. They would seal it with local olive oil and then pine resin from the trees here, the cedar trees, and export it to Egypt, France, Italy, Spain and Greece. Aside from that, Lebanon's hugely historical relationship can also be found documented in things like the Bible. Jesus, the ideal wedding guest, actually converted water into wine in Cana in South Lebanon, and Noah of Noah's Ark is said to have planted his first vineyard after the flood subsided in the Bekaa Valley in Zahle. Anyone who's interested in Italian history or philosophers, Pliny the Elder, who travelled across Europe as a bit of a travel writer and philosopher, also talks about how good the wines of Saida were, which is just south of Beirut. The political past of the country, and to some extent the present as well, has proved relatively tumultuous and has had a subsequent effect on the levels of production of wine here. In the civil war that ended in 1990, or during the civil war, there were about 5 wineries producing wine. One of the most famous, both inside of Lebanon and now outside, actually gained notoriety when he was able to export his wines during the civil war, and they made it all the way to a wine fair in Bristol. I'm talking, of course, about Chateau Musar. Since the war ended, from about 1990 to present day, there's probably about 40 or 50 different wineries that have sprung up. And the wonderful thing about it is that they're not all located in this very fertile kind of natural water table in the Bekaa Valley. They're springing up all over Lebanon. Now, desperate times lead to desperate measures, and I did draw a map, which, looking at it now, I probably won't use again. I might just refer to my hands. But I mentioned we've got the Bekaa Valley, which is kind of in the centre of Lebanon, and either side of it you've got two mountain ranges, one that borders Syria and one that kind of runs up the centre of the country, Mont Liban. And then below that we've got South Lebanon, we've got the North Governorate, and wineries are planting everywhere, and they're really playing with altitude. And what these tastings will be about is kind of an aromatic journey around the country. So I certainly have bottles in my cupboards that come from all different parts of the country, and can be used for all different types of occasions. So I really look forward to tasting them with you.